Welcome back to Women of War, where today we are each talking about a war that we think is most influential to our world. I'm Macy.
I'm Kendall.
I'm Georgia.
I'm Cooper.
And we're going to go ahead and talk about our wars. So Kendall, take it away.
Okay, so the idea of World War II rose when Germany invaded Poland on September 1st, 1939. A long time ago. From there, Great Britain and France declared war on Germany, and Allied forces followed suit. With that being said, if I had to defend, quote-unquote, World War II against other wars, I'd argue that no conflict reshaped the world more deeply, more permanently, and more globally. While many wars throughout history changed borders or shifted power, World War II transformed entire political systems, global alliances, economies, technology, and human rights standards in ways that other wars simply can't match. Take it away, Georgia.
All right. So I'm talking about the American Civil War. This was in 1861 to 1865, and it was basically a conflict between the Northern Union states and the Southern Confederacy. It was mainly over the issues of slavery and states' rights. So this all happened because of the succession of Southern states. The war was marked by massive battles and technological innovations like ironclad ships and rifled muskets. The Union fought to preserve the nation and after 1863 to abolish slavery, while the Confederacy fought to maintain its way of life and autonomy. The war ended with the Union's victory, the abolition of slavery through the 13th Amendment, and strengthened federal government. So this really set the stage for civil rights struggles in shaping the modern United States. So Cooper, you go ahead.
Okie dokie. So I have the French Revolution, and in 1789, France was drowning in debt. And so there was massive inequality, and they had a monarchy system. And basically, ordinary citizens were fed up with this lifestyle and eventually rose up against the hierarchy. So because of this, the revolution spread ideas of democracy across Europe, and it basically showed how powerful ordinary people could be whenever they were all united. And during this time, there was a lot of social and political change, and the war aimed to change the relationships between the rulers and the people. So, yeah.
Okay, I like that, Cooper. So now I'm going to talk about the American Revolutionary War. So picture it's the mid-1700s and the 13 American colonies are getting pretty fed up with Britain. Taxes, strict laws, and everyone's favorite phrase, no taxation without representation. Tensions build until 1775. The first shots ring out at Lexington and Concord, kicking a full-blown war. The colonies rally together under the Continental Army, led by none other than George Washington. This looked rough at first, but a major turning point comes with the Battle of Saratoga in 1777. That win convinces France to join the fight on the American side, and suddenly Britain isn't facing just a rebellion. It's facing an international problem. Fast forward to 1781, British General Cornwallis gets trapped at Yorktown with American and French forces closing in. He surrenders, effectively ending the war. 2 years later, the Treaty of Paris makes it official. The United States is independent. So, based on the time frame of our wars, with mine being the French Revolution, then American Revolution, then Civil War, then the World Wars, what war do we think led to the other wars? Do you think the French Revolution led to the American War, or the American Revolutionary War led to the Civil War? And if, without one of those wars, there wouldn't be one or the other? What do y'all think about that?
Well, I think that wars are wars, so they're going to be a little, I don't know, how to explain it, but, I mean, they're brutal. People are dying. There's things changing because of them. There's things that are being taken away because of them. So I think the start would be the French Revolution, right? So I think yours, Cooper, influenced everyone's in a way. Now, were some bigger than others and more like detrimental? Of course. But I think the start of it, even like pick of violence, because that's what it is, kind of. The pick of even violence is just the start of even bigger, like basically a massacre, which results in everyone else's wars and revolutions and things of such. So
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, good point.
I feel like throughout each war, like obviously things modernize, like the weapons become more detrimental, and like everything is just like better because they learned from the war before. And I think in each war, I think the deaths probably get more brutal and they just like increase because of like the adaptations to war. And so it's honestly hard picking a war to be like more important or more influential because they're all influential in their own way. But like, what do y'all think, like, what concepts and like, how do I put this, what ideologies and acts of violence were just like so impactful that like it like created the whole outline of your war specifically? Because I feel like if we talk about it and they're similar, I feel like we can find out which influenced one war more so than the other and why those ideologies were impactful. So, Cooper, what do you think about that?
So, in like the French Revolution, the reason that it all basically started is because people believed that they had inherent rights that should never be waived, and they're basically just pushing for those rights. And also, they were fed up with how everything was running. And so, anytime someone like basically has something they want to go against, then it's going to bring up a whole group of people because they're all fighting for the same thing basically and uniting. And so whenever you're dealing with that, it's kind of hard to like not have something major like a revolution or something happen. And it's kind of bound to happen because they're trying to change the ways of everything.
Yeah, that's kind of how mine was. Like, I, was reading up on this, and people were very motivated because they wanted they wanted to keep the United States together. And so, guys, we have to cut this part out.
We can. It's okay.
They wanted to preserve the Union, and they wanted to keep everyone together. And I think also a major part of it was the abolition of slavery after the Emancipation Proclamation. So it really just kind of like, and also I think a big part of it was like people wanted to defend their homeland, or that's how the Confederate soldiers felt about, their war. They were protecting each other, their homes, their families, and their rights too. So
yeah, I would agree as far as World War II. Their motivations were far more complex. Some fought for their country, some fought for their families. Some fought because of refusing to be meant as a bullet for a prison camp. Like, they were just very motivated in that sense. And many on every side were swept up in the tides of nationalism, fear, propaganda, and promises for a better future. And it just shows that ideology gave shape to duty, and then duty gave meaning to sacrifice. And that means that it made it possible to endure and inflict like unthinkable suffering.
Yeah.
So the war ended, but the ideologies didn't disappear.
Yeah, for sure. I think like for the American Revolution, like ideas like enlightenment, like concepts like natural rights, liberty, and the beliefs that the government existing would consent of the governed. I feel like they shaped the colonists on how their relationship with the Britain was, and they felt like their rights were being violated, especially through like taxation without representation. I think the English citizens felt like they were being like attacked by the Britain because they were being conflicted for their like natural rights of freedom. And I think this is where like the justification for violence came in, because the colonists like argued that peaceful petitions and protests like failed, and they didn't like, the British didn't like follow through with that. They just kind of like set it aside. And I think events like the Boston Tea Party was like framed not as like an act of aggregation, but like a response to the government and stuff like that. And I think although like death is as final as it is and like such a like terrible thing as it is, I think everyone who fought in this war, going into it, they knew that they were fighting for their country, for their families, for America, for their independence. For Britain, it was rule over America. And I think each country justified theirself in, you know, a way. So I would say for them it was justified. Obviously now we look back on like all the deaths and stuff and we're like, oh man, like that's a lot of deaths throughout like all these wars and everything like that. But yeah. What are y'all kind of thinking on this?
Well, I have like a question that we can all answer if we want to or whatever. But I was gonna ask, like, how do you guys think that your wars affected like today's time? Because I know like for the French Revolution, like during today we have global protests for equality, and it can be like racial or gender or any kind of thing like that. And every time citizens march for rights and fairness, it resembles the French Revolution. And also another example is like the push for universal human rights. So that traces back because during the French Revolution, they had the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen.
Yeah, that's definitely like the American Civil War led to a lot of like major things today. Like now we have the 13th Amendment, which ended slavery in the United States. So that was a huge step. And then like I think it really strengthened our federal government. So because it settled on a question of state versus federal authority. So it gave the government power over issues like civil rights and voting laws and, you know, national policies and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
Okay. I would say as far as World War II, its human cost made the world rethink war itself. It was so big, and the Holocaust led to international like laws about genocide, for example, and the atomic bomb forced nations to reconsider the price of modern conflict. And so World War II was just such a big thing, especially since it was one of the most recent wars as well. So like people who are living today may or may not, even if they are like in their 90s or reaching 100, they are familiar with the war, or they like, maybe some of them remember things happening in their community and, you know, things that affected them as far as the World War II. I just feel like World War II didn't just end. It left a warning that every country still recognizes. There were countries going up against each other that you really wouldn't think would go up against each other, and it stamps as a very powerful war.
Oh, for sure. That's like a great, I love that.
I feel like everybody had really good points.
Yeah, and like to close it off, I think with the American Revolution, like I think it shaped America obviously to be where we are and who we are today with the Declaration of Independence, because that is the baseboard for America, and like that is how we're shaped and how the government is shaped, and you know how we are as a country. And I think without that we wouldn't be here, and without all these wars we wouldn't be here today. So I think all these wars are super influential, and I loved hearing all y'all's information
Yeah.
on it.
Me too.
So yeah.
Thanks for listening to Women of War.